Welcome to the channel. So I'm going to show you guys why the Super Duty truck is better than the Chevy truck. So jumping right into it, looking underneath here, I'm going to explain the main reason why I go Super Duty over Chevy. So what you see right here is a solid front axle, and the benefit to having this solid front axle is if you're carrying any load across the front of the vehicle, the steering geometry does not change. The reason for that is because your tie rods connect from one hub to the other, and your gearbox is connected to only one hub. So if you look underneath here, you see your gearbox is located right there. You got your linkage connecting to the right side hub, and then from the right side hub you got a tie rod, a really heavy duty tie rod, that something you don't really see on the Chevy because of the way it's designed. You can't get something that heavy duty on the front end, but you got a heavy duty tie rod shooting across to the other side. So effectively what that does is keeps the geometry of the front end aligned no matter what kind of load you have on the front suspension. So say if you hang 1,000 pounds off the front, you're going to effectively bring the front end down, but it's not going to throw off the geometry, and it's not going to cause scrubbing with the tires, and it won't change the alignment. With the independent front suspension that you find on the GMC Chevy product, the front end geometry is effectively changed because you have control arms, and you have either rack and pinion, or even if you have a gear, and even if the linkages are connected across from each other and not on the frame of the truck, because the control arm straightens out more when it gets loaded, the geometry changes and causes a need for a change in the length of this linkage in order to maintain the same alignment. So if I bottom this front end out all the way down to the bump stops, the alignment of the front end will not be changed. Whereas if you bottom a Chevy truck out, which is probably a little bit easier to do than it is on here, if you bottom that front end out, you're changing the angle of the control arms, and in turn changing the geometry of the front end, and causing scrubbing with the between the tires. So effectively, when you're going down the road, now the tires are going to be pointing either at it toward each other or slightly away from each other, which could cause darting or scrubbing. You probably wouldn't notice it, but you certainly have more wear on your tires, less even wear, or most importantly, in my opinion, you put pressure on your hub bearings while you are going down the road in a straight line. This axle is a Dana 60, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a Dana 60. And what Ford's basically done is put the heaviest duty axle along the front end of this truck. In fact, the ratings of this front axle is almost as high as the rear axle, which I believe is a Sterling axle. It's not quite as good. You might even get a better rear axle in the Chevy, but the rating on this axle on this front end is about as strong as the rear. Maybe a couple 100 pounds lighter, but this is a proven, tried and true front axle, and it really does go the distance when it comes to hauling weight and carrying weight. This axle is strong enough to go across the rear of the truck, not to mention just the front. So let's take a look. I think you can see the axle ratings on the door sticker, I want to say. Can you see that? Where does it say? It says somewhere here. Here's the door sticker. One thing cool that Chevy's done on the newer trucks is they're like putting the ratings and the towing ratings on the they're putting the towing ratings here in the door jamb. But the front axle can carry 5,600 pounds, and the rear axle can carry 6,100 pounds. So that's pretty impressive, and that is why when you're equipping your truck with the plow, a lot of times you cannot combine a diesel with a heavy plow like this one. This is a Western wideout. A lot of times you can't combine a diesel with a plow like this with a GM product without going over weight on the front axle. But you can generally do it with the Super Duty F250 or F350, just because once you get that plow prep package, you get heavier front springs, and you're gonna get that Dana 60, I believe, on every 250 with four-wheel drive. So just adding four-wheel drive gives you an incredible amount of front axle carrying ability by default, but then adding snowplow prep package gives you heavier front springs, which in turn gives you the proper amount of weight carrying ability on the front axle. And it also helps to have a good weight rating on the rear axle, and whenever possible, it's best to get as much payload as possible when you can. So if you were going to do a diesel with Super Duty, it'd be best to go with a 350. And if you, like I said, if you're going with diesel, it's best to do a 350 with the payload package, because the diesel is going to be a couple of 100 pounds heavier on the front end, and having a little bit extra capacity even on the rear end, or in general with the truck itself, that extra capacity in the rear actually helps the front, because you can put weight behind your rear axle to counteract the weight that's on the front. Because any weight that goes behind your axle, if you push it back far, all the way in the back of the truck, that removes weight from the front. So having more capacity here, you could maybe put 800 pounds behind your rear, or maybe you're going to do a spreader, a salt spreader or something like that, and that would effectively remove weight from the front. Whereas, and vice versa, hanging that plow off the front end, 1,000 pounds, and it's stretched far out, it is removing weight from the rear axle because it's pivoting it down over the front axle. So that's why you need to put the ballast as far back as possible, because it makes the rear end lighter when you're going down the road, which can be a dangerous situation, and definitely overloads the front end on any vehicle, Ford, Chevy, Dodge. If you're going to put a plow in the front, you have to go ahead and throw that ballast in the back, because if you don't, you got essentially not only the weight of the plow, but more of the truck's weight ends up on the front axle. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and have a great day. Please subscribe, share the video, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.